All right, so we're going to take a look now at some of the fundamental differences between bilateral and offset loading, and we'll use this video here of Nicole doing an overhead split squat. And what I want you to pay attention to, even though the weights here on both videos are going to be relatively light, so it's not going to pop out at you, pay attention to the differences in foot patterning and the positioning of the hips as she goes throughout the ranges of motion. So these will play side by side, but take a look, concentrate on the left side here first with the bilateral load, and notice that the foot is very stable and we have a relatively good balance at the pelvis. She's able to move straight down and straight up throughout the path of motion. And now if we jump over here to the right side and take a look at the offset variation, and again, these will be subtle, but some of the things that you'll see when they're more adequately loaded, we'll say, is a lack of stability in the front foot. You'll see a lot more medial lateral deviations. The athlete will often also try to either internally or externally rotate the lower leg to try to create stability. And I think a reason for that is the demand that offset loading is going to place on the adductor abductor groups specifically. And when we have changes at the transverse and the frontal muscles of the hips, that's going to in some way, shape, or form change the firing pattern of the muscles of the lower leg group as they accommodate to the activation or the muscular demand of the hip musculature. So taking a look now at the video here, we see on the first rep, the left hip, if you watch as she comes down, and she has some instability in the hip, but she gets almost kind of this ducking pattern or almost pulling into external rotation right here at the bottom. If we go back over to the left side, we don't see really any kind of deviation left to right, maybe a little bit right there, but nevertheless, it's more pronounced over here on the right. So that's exactly what I'm talking about with this. And again, if this is a more significant load for her, this is going to be an exaggerated positioning of the hips where she's going to shift back into external rotation. What we want is for her to be able to maintain more congruency in the internal rotators and kind of stay more towards her midline as she transitions from the bottom portions of the movement. Additionally, we can talk quickly about how there's the push-pull contrast of the upper or of the arm, so then therefore the upper body is under more reciprocating tension as opposed to here. This is going to be evenly distributed, so the musculature at the trunk is going to only really be responsive to the lower half and not so much the upper half. So with the offset loading, we're getting more of that upper and lower concurrent engagement, and I think for all intents and purposes, that's more of a favorable thing than not.